We are going to be talking about the Vittorio De Sica film Sunflower, which starred Marcello Mastroanni and Sophia Loren. This came out in 1970. And my guest today is Simon Furness from London, England, who is an actor and acting teacher who was on my channel about a year ago talking about Pasolini and Italian film. Right. So welcome back, Simon.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be back, Rob. And I'm really glad that you've kept this channel going for enthusiasts. It's always a great pleasure to see you. And yeah, I mean, over the years, we've helped each other out, haven't we? And
absolutely.
You've got your Italian, Canadian background. I relate to that as well, especially the Italian side, having lived there. And also this film, which I hadn't seen, was a great pleasure to watch it, actually. And Girasoli, Sunflower. And it's the most poignant thing. I mean, all of De Sica's films are extraordinarily heartfelt, aren't they?
Oh,
you
God,
know, Bicycle Thieves. And also the one he made a few with Loren, but the one that I saw not so long ago, which is truly harrowing, is La Ciociaria.
Two women.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the English translation is. La Ciociaria. I think that's the correct pronunciation. But
that's where her and her daughter, right, in the war.
That's right. And there's a most awful scene of violation, which by today's standards probably wouldn't strike one as being so awful, but the whole act anyway is hideous. But the way De Sica films it's deeply impacting in a way I think that perhaps a modern filmmaker might be encouraged to be more graphic, shall we say.
Yeah.
But De Sica makes you feel, and she does too, in the horror of the act. But she's an incredible actress, I think. You know, I watched her last film, the one she did with her son recently about a retired prostitute. Yeah, again, she's not lost any of her gravitas and her experience. I mean, you know, when you watch her, you feel like you're spending an afternoon with somebody who's lived a life.
Yeah, you know? No, absolutely. No, she's an extraordinary actress. And I can't really remember when I was younger, growing up, what I had seen with her, but only in the last few years, I saw, A Special Day, which I know you're fond of. And I was like, wow, she's not just this beautiful, glamorous woman. Like, she was really a fantastic, a fantastic actress. So I hadn't seen this film either, Sunflower, until I decided to do it and invited you on. So what did you think about it?
Well, I mean, it's first and foremost, it's a tragic and harrowing love story, isn't it? About two people who should be together, want to be together, but by the horrible accident and circumstance of a world war, the Second World War, they are prevented from so doing, and it's got an extraordinary panoramic, epic quality to it. I suppose it reminds me of some of those David Lean films, Dr. Zhivago. It's got that kind of epic sweep to it. And yeah, I mean, some of the scenes on the Russian front. Do you remember that awful scene where he goes into that hut to find it full of Italian soldiers?
Oh, yes.
And you don't know whether they're dead or alive. And it's so awfully cold. And it's very, very haunting. And of course, he collapses and he's dragged to safety by the Russian woman who becomes his wife. And of course, it's wonderful that back in Italy, the Sophia Loren character hasn't given up hope, and it's a little bit hard to accept that she goes all the way to Russia and finds him.
Yeah,
but that's a movie, and somehow the heart of those two actors, Mastroanni and Loren, they take you with it. Which I suppose is what's great about a fine actor. They can actually almost paper over anything which is slightly dubious about
melodramatic or far-fetched. Yeah.
But also it takes you into what it must have been like to be living in Italy during that war. And also remember, it was in 1970 it was made, and Italy was plunged into another kind of war at this point, because of course this was the era of the Anni di Piombo, the Years of Lead, which was the whole, the Red Brigade's activities and the shootings of Aldo Moro, I think, which he happened later in 73, 74, I think. But Italy was also in a very delicate situation politically with the Christian democracy government and the very powerful counter-insurgency movement from the left.
Right.
So it's quite interesting that it should have been made at such a time. And I don't know how political De Sica was. I don't, but it's interesting that it informs this film. But no, I really loved it, Rob, and I to anyone who's interested in something passionate and sincere and simple and conflicting and heartfelt, this is a really, really wonderful film. And the metaphor of the sunflower too. So touching, wasn't it? That every sunflower represents the Italian soldier who's died.
Yes.
You know, the Russians planted those sunflowers, or they were. I think that's right, isn't it? When they planted, especially.
Yeah, well, they made them dig their own graves. The Italian soldiers. Right. So each sunflower represented and one of the Italian soldiers. Which what did you think that was a metaphor for something about the main characters?
Well, yeah, I've got a sunflower in my window here, and it's such an optimistic thing to have and to look at.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's hard to put into words really, but out of the hideousness, the hideous soil of blood and suffering, something like a sunflower stands there. And it made me cry, actually. I feel terrible now talking about it, because it's such a sort of evocative and emotive thing, that out of that horror,
it was
tremendous horror. The Italians had a terrible time being shackled, I think, you know, one way or the other to the German war machine. And one forgets that the Italians served in the Eastern Front, and so many thousands of them lost their lives. One thinks about it as a war between the Germans and the Russians, but the Italians were there in support of the German army, of course, and you know, with all the hideousness that could imply. And no, I thought it was really that sunflower, the way, because it's a flower which sort of speaks of the heart to me. And that's what this film has. Tremendous.
Yeah, I that's really well. I hadn't thought of it that way, and to me, it also spoke to well, both of them really. They sort of both die in a sense, and they're both reborn by being. You know, he remarries. He has this child, and she remarries, and she has a child, and and even that other the man that she goes to that football match. And you know, she spots something. I know you're Italian. I know you look Italian, and he even says, I used to be. And it's it's almost like a second life. It's almost like a reincarnation. So I thought that's what perhaps was something else he was getting at.
Yeah, I think so. that somehow life can be a seed can be transplanted to a different soil and still take root.
Exactly.
You know, I think that's another aspect of it, certainly. Yeah, but it's just got all of De Sica's humanity and warmth. And this is the man who made Bicycle Thieves and countless other great movies.
Yeah. Well, he had such a, you know, it's amazing how powerful his films are. And I'm not saying simplicity isn't powerful, but we're not seeing really complex character studies in terms of behavior, like something out of Mike Leigh or Cassavetes. I mean, it's very much that they're struggling with what's happened to them and what that's done to their relationships. And in this case, it's so tragic because they really still really love each other. That happens all the time. It's like things happen. In their case, it was a war, and you can understand why he remarried. I mean, I love that scene when he goes back to her at the end and says, he's struggling to tell her why, but it really came down to he was afraid to almost leave that woman's house. You know, I mean, she was almost like a guardian angel, and he just gravitated towards her. I mean, they don't discuss things like PTSD back then, but I would imagine that would be, you know, largely something he was experiencing. So
I think so. Yeah.
It's quite moving, but just those moments, like, you know, they're jaw-dropping when she finds him he gets off the train, he goes to hug his wife, and then she points, and just the looks, just like they're staring at each other, and I couldn't help but, you know, I just was so still, I couldn't move. I know. And when they say goodbye at the end on the train, you know,
God, it's heartbreaking. The train's going out, isn't it? And she's sobbing there. You know, I mean, it's really, really deeply emotional and truly heartfelt stuff, and you know, I think it also reminds me, probably in a state of war, God, clearly emotions are heightened. People live in an extreme way, in a way perhaps that they don't in peacetime, although I wouldn't wish, obviously, war on anybody to experience life deeply. It must be possible to live life deeply without being involved in a war. But I just think it's so heroic as well that she didn't give up.
I love that.
She went all the way to Russia to find him, and she found him.
Yeah.
And those Russian women who were only too happy to point her in the right direction.
Well, you know, it's so, you know, you bring up a good point about, you know, elements that may be far-fetched. And I think in this case, you're right, because it's so much about Sophia Loren's, like, you have to have a great actor to be able to make you believe that she could do it, because she really has faith. Like she, I love her off the top when she's talking. I guess she goes to an embassy where she's trying to figure out if he's been certified as dead or not, and the guy just says, "Well, he's not. So technically, he might be alive, but it's you know, unlikely." And she's like, "Okay, well then, so he's not dead. Well, that's all I need to know." You know,
that's all I need to know. Yeah.
She carries on, and you really go with her, even though it's sort of like, you know, it's not like in Hitchcock's sense where he may have something far-fetched. So he uses the editing and suspense in order for you to get lost in it. But this is really about the performance.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, yeah. And so I think that there's I love that sequence where he pretends to be mad to avoid and they almost get away with it, except of course when they think the door is locked and they can't be seen, they're observed, you know.
And of course it's through a picture of Jesus, which I thought was ironic.
That's very Italian.
Oh God, yeah.
It was always the Madonna and you know.
That was brilliant. I had a hunch that they were putting on an act. I don't know, because when she went into that, she goes into like that barber shop or that hair salon, and they run after her, and she kind of looks to see who's coming, and I thought for a second, I thought, is this? And then sure enough, did you feel that wasn't until the reveal? That she was.
Well, I knew she was putting on an act when she was on her own, but actually up until then, she was doing a pretty good performance, a pretty good job. Yeah. I mean, it was good enough. It's one of those things that's interesting, I think, is that it's got to be good enough for you, the viewer, to go along with the fact that other people could be fooled by it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, yeah.
It can't be, if it's really lousy, you go, how the hell would anyone, me included, take that seriously? But it's so good that you can go, yeah, I accept that. Others around her would be deceived. But how lovely that I'm not. And that's the viewer's privilege, isn't it? And I think that's the great thing about cinema performances, is that, you know, in life, of course, if I say something to upset you, Rob, or you to me, for example, what we do in life is put the poker face. We don't actually reveal how we feel. Whereas in close-up in a movie, that will be a very boring and wasted moment.
Right.
Because what the audience and the camera loves is for me to actually, in my face, let you see how I feel about Rob upsetting me. Even if I'm going, and that's how movies are unreal. In a way, life is real. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it? That people think the movie art form, screen acting, is reality. But you and I, we know that. I mean, it's the most unreal thing of all. I mean, as anyone who's tried to cheat a shot to get closer into camera knows, you have to put yourself in all kinds of contorting physical positions just to get into the right frame. And how someone like Mastroanni and Loren do it and make it look so natural, which they do, is a tribute, I think, to their own extraordinary talents and abilities. And of course, to me, in my heart, they're a bit like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, or Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. They've got that kind of historic. You feel you've got two people here who are not just expert actors; they're great actors who know each other and trust each other. In the way that Nureyev and Fontaine did in the ballet, or Scorsese and De Niro, or whatever, when they work, you know, a kind of shorthand.
Yes.
Which I think is rare now. Yeah. Rare, very rare, and is always a wonderful thing to experience.
No, that's really well said, and that's what I imagine too. That, I mean, even in the way in which he would, when they're intimate, and as you know, as an actor, that can be one of the hardest things with someone you may, even if you know them or don't know them. And even if he touched her breast in certain scenes, it just seemed like it was so natural. It didn't seem awkward.
It didn't.
Even if you watch them in other movies like Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, where you know, they played so many different types of relationships. Either they were married or they hated each other or whatever. And you and whether it was comedic or dramatic, you always totally bought it. And I think it was really just that they played off each other and they had so much fun. I can imagine that they just were really, you know, enjoying it. And even when you see them in interviews, before we started recording, you had mentioned that was it the Dick Cavett?
It's on YouTube. Yeah, she talks about it on YouTube. It's only a short thing, but she just says what a delight it was to work with him. But I didn't know it was about not learning his lines, which I find hard to believe. But maybe it's part of his pretense of going, I think he was a guy who worked really hard and then turned up and went, hey, what are we doing today? I have no idea what's going on. And she believed that.
Well, you know what? But you're probably right, because it's hard to believe that he didn't come in, you know, really, really well prepared. And I think I know the clip you're talking about, and I know that in the UK, unfortunately, you still don't have the Criterion channel. I don't think the streaming service.
No, I don't think we do. I mean, obviously, the DVDs are out there. It's the publishing and printing, the publishing and distribution network here, but I don't know. Maybe there is a channel now, Rob. I haven't looked at it.
Well, we've had, it's an extraordinary service, and we've had it in they released it about 2.5 years ago. I think it's only in America and Canada right now, but that interview you're talking about, I believe, is the one with Dick Cavett, and it's like a 45-minute interview between the two of them. And you know, they knew each other so well that even, you know, because he was speaking in English with Dick Cavett, and anytime he stumbled, you could see Sophia Loren knew when he was lost to come in to translate, and they were just so comfortable around. And she compared him to like a Latin lover, you know, and and his translation, you know, he was trying to say that a Latin lover is someone who, you know, someone who woos a woman, and so he was saying that's not him, but he didn't have the English to say it, so he was saying, you know, a Latin lover is someone who fucks with and Dick Cavett, just so you can see, is like, he's like, oh my God, we're gonna have to edit that out. It's a great interview. If you ever see the whole thing on YouTube,
I'll try and watch that.
It's really,
but
really good.
You reminded me actually that there are, you know, again on YouTube there's this whole there's a little tribute thing to Mastroanni and Loren, and there's a scene, I think it's in Girasoli, actually, when he kisses her by the boat, and when he kisses her, or when she kisses him, my God. You know, they really are going for it, and you think it's very different to what we're presented with now, where everything feels, I'm afraid to say, a lot of the time, I'm generalizing here, slightly curated. You know, for all kinds of reasons, which you know are complex and interesting. But oh my God, when you watch these two, they're just together in that intimate way, and it's like an electric charge. Boom, you feel it.
That's really well said. And when I was watching the film, I realized that you had to see them really be passionately in love in order for you to really care later on.
Oh God,
and they do, and you're right. I mean, in the way in which they embrace it, it was just so, it was so authentic and so real. And I also really appreciate, you know, I don't know if this editing style popped out to you, and this is something I don't see very much nowadays. But for example, when he was talking about, I'll never get married off the top, I can't get married, boom, they're in the wedding, you know. Even later on, after she sees him in the train station, and now he's married with a child, and then she starts to cry on the train, and then cut, and now she's with another man. So the audience fills in those blanks. But I don't know if that popped out to you, because I love that kind of editing where they just sometimes can just bring it years forward in a single shot, you know, or just bring it to the next scene hanging off someone's reactions where they look upset, and now they're giving it to that. You know, did that really pop out to you?
It did, you know, Rob, but more so now you've mentioned it. And again, that is a very interesting thing. I'm not sure if it's a feature of De Sica's style, but certainly in this film, yes. I think I love the way because what I like about it is that it involves the audience to the point where you have to go and fill in the blanks, as you say.
Exactly.
Whereas I think a lot of the time now, everything is sort of parceled up for us.
Exactly.
You know, we're kind of passively receiving things, whereas you really feel with this movie and others of De Sica that you're actively engaging with your emotional life in it, which I think is where it really counts for me. You know,
it's a shame that we don't see that often. I know in the 70s, certainly, even Cassavetes started to do that a number of times in his films, but it's something that I think is really, really unique. I wish I saw that more. We touched on some of the humor earlier. Do you think this had a really good balance with humor? I mean, I think based on what we're saying, you did, because I did as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I did actually. I mean, I think the mad stuff, the scenes where he's playing to be crazy, you know, and the way he's arrested and all of that for that, and that struck me as well, and just there was a lightness about it as well, and the way she collars that guy whom she knows is Italian. I mean, it's not belly laughs, but there's a wry gentleness about it as well.
Yeah, there is.
Perhaps I'm not remembering the film as well as I might. Are there any moments that stand out to you?
Well, those were the main ones. There's another one early on, you know, when they're kissing on the beach, and then he accidentally swallowed her earring, and then right after that, when you know they continue their conversation, but when they go back to kissing again, right before she goes down, she pops her other earring out and puts it in her pocket. I just thought,
I missed that. That's very astute. Wow, there you go. You see,
I love that.
Yeah, who knows if that happened accidentally or whether. Yeah, it's very interesting.
It's hard to say, but you know, the neorealists, as serious as a lot of these films are, they always found, Rossellini was like that too. He always found this balance of this really organic humor. It never felt forced. It never felt like in Rome Open City, where I'm sure you remember, the priest goes into that shop and he sees a statue of a naked woman right next to Jesus, and he turns them so they're not facing each other. You know, just that sense of like irony and almost poking fun of, you know, the religion and Catholics and so on and so forth. But I really, really liked it. I don't know if, did you ever see, it's this film here. The American version is called The Indiscretion of an American Wife with Montgomery Clift.
I've got it up here actually. Montgomery Clift and...
what's her name? Jennifer Jones.
Yeah, she was married to some movie mogul. Zanuck, I think, or someone like that.
Yeah,
but the film was quite badly hacked about in the edit. And the version I've got on DVD feels quite short to me. Yeah. But you know what? It's got a similar sort of emotional charge. Of course, Montgomery Clift, he's deep and he's profound, but he's got a very different sensibility to Mastroanni. I don't think he quite has Mastroianni's lightness and grace.
No, he was very serious. You know, he's very intense and serious.
And root. But yeah, he doesn't have Mastroianni's ability, like Quicksilver, to shift.
Yes.
You know, from one thing to another, which is a wonderful quality, I think, and which makes him as an actor very watchable. I love Clift, you know, but I think there was something very drawn and suffering about him. And that was to do with him as a man, I think, as much as anything else.
I think so. But, you know, this film, because I had also seen only the one that you mentioned, the 70-minute one. This new Blu-ray, which I think is pretty recent, that I got not too long ago, has the full 90 minutes, which was re-edited by Paramount. But it's amazing to me. It's very much the same story as Sunflower, but it's minus the war. I mean, in this case, she's married and has a child, and so it's an affair, and that's ultimately why it ends, because she's, you know, I have a family. This can't go on. But it's incredible to me that he sort of borrowed that element of that relationship into this story. And again, it's so simple, but yet so powerful. I know Scorsese in Voyage to Italy said, you know, De Sica he could direct emotions like no one else, you know, and it's also the music, I think, to an extent. He's got that Mancini score in this. I mean, it's quite operatic and melodramatic, but it just works so well. Usually I don't like that large music, but I don't know, with him, I feel like if it's De Sica, I'll go there.
No, absolutely. There's something very lush about his style, you know, very different to someone like Fellini, for example, who's got a very, I don't know how you would compare them really. Fellini, I think my impression is that he kind of dropped the neorealistic dogma, if you like. It wasn't really a dogma, but he went in his own direction into a world of dreams, I think, his own dream life, which he managed to dramatize in a way I don't think any other filmmaker has really ever done since or before. But De Sica, I think, he seems to celebrate heroism and courage and optimism and sacrifice and all of that. And I suppose we've been living in those times where those qualities have been called out. of many people. And so it's not so hard to accept. And people want to believe in that. They want to feel that, because life as we know it and live it often can feel a little, at least I'm talking here about myself, but a little insular and a little, I don't know, not granular, but not sometimes one loses senses of the bigger picture of why we're here. And we're here because De Sica's films are here to give and to experience and to feel and to be in contact with others and to serve them, you know, and we get it wrong sometimes. People are blinded by egotism and folly, and you know, he's a deep filmmaker. I mean, why do you still read Chekhov or Shakespeare? For the same reason, you know? Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. And I think that's why his films, you know, hold up so well. I was curious because, I know, obviously you're British, you're living in England, but when did the Italian films start to become interesting to you?
Well, really, when I went to live in Italy, actually, and we're going back a few years now. When did I go over there? I moved over there in 1997. Right. Yeah, I fell crazy in love with this girl, wonderful woman. We're still in touch sporadically, you know, but. It was one of those classic, well, it was a Mastroanni moment, my friend. You know, I wasn't really getting any work as an actor, and my agent at the time had ceased trading. And I was in one of those situations where I really didn't have a reason for staying in London anymore. And my reason for something deeper was, it was one of those moments where I thought, I have no doubt about this. I really want to go and live in this other country with this woman. And I did. And we made it possible, and it was a very joyous time for 6 or 7 years. So that was really late 90s, right into the early thousands. So Berlusconi was in power then, and yeah, I mean, Italy is not. I mean, I lived in Milan, which is, you know, the wealthiest city probably in the whole of the country, and culturally, it was very alive, and you could watch these old films in various little art cinemas. And in those days when you could do that. And so I sought out Fellini's films and Pasolini's films. I'd begun to watch them already anyway. You know, I had always been interested in Italian culture, and particularly the cinema. You know, in the post-war period, they kind of did something extraordinary, I think, Italian filmmakers. Oh, yeah. And, you know, even now, today, when you've got people like Soldini and Sorrentino and people like that, still, you know, they've got a very visually lush approach to life and to filmmaking. I don't know if you've seen any of Sorrentino's films.
I've seen a few. I still, you know, I recently had a guest on, and we discussed, you know, why are we not hearing about Italian cinema like here? And I'm talking in terms of Canada, maybe in England, people are hearing about it more. But I was like, you know, why? And just from doing research, it's, you know, sort of Italy kind of, like a lot of countries went with Hollywood in the 80s. And so suddenly Michelle Pfeiffer in the late 80s is on the cover of Italian magazines and the blockbusters. And they sort of really, I mean, it's a complex history. And we talked about it, for me and this gentleman, for about an hour and a half over this. But I constantly am wondering, where are the masters of today? And I know that Sorrentino, I know that there are people doing good work. It's just you got to look for it a little bit, I think.
Well, I know in Milan I saw, I mean, Soldini, Pani e Tulipani, and people like Marco Tullo Giordano, who did I Cento Passi, and God, what else did he do? A film about Pasolini, actually, The Last Days of His Life.
Is that the Ferrara one with Willem Dafoe?
No, well, Ferrara, of course, is Italian-American, isn't he? Yeah. He's brought up in the American tradition, whatever that means. But I was thinking, who's that Turkish-Italian guy? Ferdinand Ozpetek, I think. You know, and he had a really big hit with, I've forgotten his name, but I was more aware of it in Italy. I was aware of an Italian filmmaking tradition living in Italy. Right. And apart from Sorrentino, I don't know. I think it's a complex question, Rob, as you say. It's a matter of distribution. It's a matter of money. It's a matter of, you know, who controls all that and what they want, what they think people want to see. But I think you have to go to the country and stuff. I mean, for example, if you and I lived in France, right, I mean, we would be, because I think the French have really cared for, in the way the other aspects of their culture they do, their film industry. they've been very, very careful about it, and they, you know, they haven't let it become incubate. What's the word?
Americanized,
overwhelmed, overrun, Americanized. Yeah, that's the best word for it. And I think I admire them for that. I admire them for keeping that out because it's endured. It's. I'm afraid I would like to say that we've done the same thing, but I don't think we have. But anyway, comparisons are what they are. But I really admire the French for that.
That's true, because you still, even over here, we still know a lot of the French. We still hear about that here, where you're right. I mean, it must be from that care that they have over there.
Yeah.
But sorry, go on. You had to.
No, not at all. No, I'm just thinking there's a lot of. I mean, I've just started subscribing to this channel. You probably know it. Mubi.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they do some quite good deals. I'm on their £1 a month deal for 3 months or something like that. You know. And
nice.
So and you know, there's some wonderful things there, which of course don't get to see the light of day.
Right.
In the mainstream cinemas. I mean, I quite like the streaming experience to an extent, but I do miss going to movies with friends, which is a thing I haven't done for some time now. And it used to be a big part of my life.
Me as well. Yeah. It certainly has its pros and cons, but luckily we have like a Mubi, these streaming services or Criterion Channel, and even where I found this, Canopy, which is only in the States and in Canada through a library service, and they have extraordinary movies that you can see for free there. So you know the legacies live on, but I was really glad that you could come on to talk again about an Italian film and talk about Sunflowers. So I really enjoyed it. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob, and it's always good to see you and hear you, and let's do it again sometime, huh?
Yes, no, absolutely. Thanks so much. Okay. And just before I'll just sign off quickly. For those of you watching, thank you so much, and please consider subscribing. It's absolutely free to subscribe. The Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo, you'll see it right here, floating above my head to your top left. Digitally later when I put it in. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new videos or when I go live. Well, thanks so much again, everyone, and I will see you soon.